you ended up circling back into our lives in a meaningful way.
I know. And then, I've actually, because I employ engagement fundraising, I don't do moves management, pyramid stuff, that gives you Tourette's. Well, because I do engagement fundraising, people are starting to say, well, how, I was rookie of the year last year. I'm going to be top in the territory again this year. I'm pretty sure. Well, because I got a mega planned gift by engagement fundraising, letting the donor define the story, letting the donor drive.
This is a great testimonial. Keep it going, keep it going.
And people will say, well, how do you do this? And I said, that's why I asked Jen for like 3 or 4 copies of engagement fundraising, because I don't want to be passive aggressive. I don't want to be flip.
You're like, here, just read this.
Just read this. And the good news is I think I've got some influence by being just very measured and saying, this is the system and this is why it works. It just does. And I'm able to, because of the results, that I'm actually getting doors open to me that I don't think people would have normally opened to me, so I can spread the gospel, so to speak, of engagement.
I really appreciate that. And there's good news for you. And we might want to talk offline about this. Hi, TJ, Shalita, Stephen. Good to see you. I opened
Give me an email.
Early.
Send me an email or something.
Because I think I may have told you and others, I've been talking about it because I've been working on it for 2.5 years, but I've got 2 books I'm working on. And they're really at the stage where I need people who are actually doing it to comment. So it's not just me telling people what to do. But the 2 books are, the first one, which will come out early next year, I hope, is called Making Outreach. So it will teach and provide the words and everything, fundraisers, how to make outreach so they land meetings with the most qualified donor prospects. That's the first book that's coming out. Then it'll probably be at least 6 months, maybe a year later. I'm working on the engagement fundraising operating system.
Love it.
So this is an upgrade from DOS. Most fundraising operations are running on DOS. Yes. And this is like the Mac OS operating system. And what people are telling me, I've got some folks over at St. Jude's and some other places that are testing it out. And it just turns all this moves management, boo-hucky, malarkey, upside down, inside out, and backwards.
Can you spell it, Greg?
Boo-hucky. That's a new one. I like that.
Boo-hucky. I just made up that word. So anyway, we got 1 more minute. It looks like folks are joining, so that's terrific. Tim, I'm glad to see you here. Thank you for joining. Yeah, great to see you. Let's see. Oh, Stephen Tannenbaum. He's like I don't think you've missed one, Stephen. Thank you for coming. Shalita, it's always good to see you. You're a super fan. And Elizabeth, thank you for joining us again. It's good to see you. I'll wait another 30 seconds or a minute. I know not everybody's an early bird like you all. But anyway, yeah. Thanks for all the good words though, Laura. You are the reason why I do all this. It's not the massive amounts of money and riches that are just bestowed on me, which actually I seem to not be able to find.
I know.
No, the thing is, you know what is interesting? So for all you insiders who are here a minute early, in case you didn't know it, I'm the sole investor in the company. We don't have any private equity money. We didn't take venture capital money. So we're doing this old school where when we make profit, I either reinvest it by sharing it, which I announced to our team, we shared profit last week, or I reinvest it into the company. There's no wheelbarrow, for me to go buy second homes or something. So we're gonna do it old school style. All right, so looks like people are joining us right on time. I'll start my slides. It was nice chatting with you early. For those of you who it's their first time and don't know me, hi, I'm Greg Warner. I'm the CEO and founder of Market Smart, and welcome to the Mastermind Mixers. I hope you'll come again. Today we're going to talk about getting the support and recognition, mostly the recognition you deserve, and how to use this to help your donors find meaning in their lives and be the best versions of themselves. So I'll be tying some of Dr. James' research into this because, of course, this is for people who are taking the course or for Market Smart customers. Some of you are both. All right, so let's get my little housekeeping real quick. Remember, anybody involved with your cause can attend these events. I hope you'll invite your friends and colleagues, staff, leadership, board members, volunteers. It's open, even if you have a friend from another organization, just let us know, because this is kind of insider stuff. So yeah, it's mostly Market Smart customers, e-course students, and feel free to share this meeting link with everybody. Oh, and there's a survey at the very end. I'm always hopeful that this club will grow. Maybe it's nice that it's small, but to me, the measure that the measure of growth, that proves that I'm adding value in people's lives if they invite others and the people keep coming back. If that's not happening, then I'd love to hear your feedback, or even if you have positive feedback, that's great. Just give me any kind of feedback, we'll take it. Oh, and one other reminder for the e-course subscribers, it is an annual subscription, so you'll be billed at the end of your term. I know we just had a bunch of people come through and re-up their subscription. So, all right, so today we're going to talk about a LinkedIn post that I wrote and pressed the button on. I never know how these things are going to happen, what's going to happen with them. And my marketing manager was like, how do you come up with these things? And I was like, I just write them because I'm in the middle of something and then I get an idea and I just type them up and away it goes. Or sometimes it's in some content that I've written a long time ago and I'm like, oh, you know what, let me reword that and then just see what people think. So I never know what's gonna take off, but this post, and I'll show you it in a minute, got a lot of action. So I thought I'd bring it to your attention today. And I want to ask you, especially since I think this is a smaller group today. Let's see how many, I don't know how many are here. It's hard for me to tell, but I'll probably keep it that we won't break out into smaller groups today. I'm curious to find out why you think it resonated. And then what is the problem? Like, why is it only resonating with fundraisers and not with leadership, administrators, board members, and donors? And then I'm gonna prescribe what I think we can do about this, which is a little bit, I was talking to you all about the engagement fundraising operating system I'm developing a book on, and this will be in the book. So your feedback might even end up in the book here as we have this discussion. So last thing, we love referrals. If you have a colleague, a friend, an old buddy from another organization that you think would think the world of you because you ended up referring them to us and they get a 10-to-1 minimum return on investment, which is what we guarantee, or what we aim for is 100-to-1. If they would think better of you because you referred them, please consider mentioning us. All right. How'd you like how I worded that, by the way? I don't know. I'm working on a new way to ask for referrals, make it all about you, value for you, practicing what I preach. All right, let's dig in. So this is what I wrote on LinkedIn, and I broke it up into pieces so that it's easier for you to read. And I'll read it out loud and I'll go through it. I wrote, if you're a fundraiser, you're not a beggar or manipulator who twists arms. Rather, you're a caring, helpful, generous, joyful facilitator who creates and delivers value through the giving experience. You're an expert guide, much like a lawyer, doctor, financial planner, accountant, or other expert meeting with someone to help them achieve a goal or complete a task. Similarly, you know where the alligators are in the pond and where the landmines are in the field. You can help supporters avoid them. Plus, you're a facilitator who can deliver the best possible giving experience, a VIP experience. You can help supporters and donors attain the value they deserve and the outcomes they deeply desire. So be confident you know how to help extraordinary people. You do this every day. This is your thing. Keep your head high and your chin up. Your donors cry tears of joy when they find meaning in their lives through sharing their wealth, thanks to you and your support. What do you think? Why did that get so many people? People were sending me messages that they printed it out. Someone said they put it on their wall. They read it frequently. What's going on? And you're all on mute, so you need to unmute if you care to.
Well, I know, Greg, when I saw that and I read it, I forwarded it to everybody in my division, in the Florida division. I have five colleagues in the Florida division, and we all loved the alligators in the pond being in Florida here. Yeah. And then, but just this whole thing that we've been trying to find ways to work with, we're in planned giving, so we like to work with lawyers and financial advisors for referrals because we can help their clients in all those ways that you described, but we find it we're looking for ways to actually position ourselves like this. So yeah, this was very encouraging, but to your other question, why doesn't this resonate, or why don't we look like that? That's kind of the discussion that we've been having internally.
I'm going to help you with that later in this discussion. Yep. Any other thoughts?
Oh, my God.
Shalita, is that
Hi.
Shalita? Hi.
Yeah, I was going to chime in, but I can wait.
No, you're up. You're unmuted and ready to roll.
Laura, I appreciate what you just said. It's true, and everything you said, because whenever I say I'm a fundraiser, and that's the way I always introduce myself when people ask, they look at me, oh, how can you ask people for money? Well, I'm not asking people for money. I'm helping people realize their dreams. That's the way I look at it. And Naomi Levine, who we've discussed before on this particular post, always said that you're there to facilitate someone to realize their dream. And I truly believe that as a fundraiser.
Who taught you that?
Naomi Levine.
Naomi Levine? You
Yes.
knew her?
Yes, I studied with her.
She's the wealthy philanthropist? Is that?
She was at NYU and was a prolific fundraiser for NYU.
Right.
Saved that university. Billions of dollars she raised.
This is true. I haven't heard that name in a long time.
Yes.
But if anybody ever wants to look up the most prolific fundraiser, perhaps of all time, besides you people who are here on this meeting, of course. Yeah. Interesting. I might even thank you for bringing up that up. Yeah, many of us have mentors. It's almost though like you need permission to be who you're meant to be, you need permission to take this position. Sometimes administrators get in the way. They want you to be solicitors, not facilitators. Now, Dr. James says in the course, and this, I couldn't believe he wrote this. He said, in every story needs a villain. And in the nonprofit sector, the villain in the donor story is the administrator. And the reason, and this is in the course, the reason is because they have their own hero story, that they want to look themselves in the mirror and tell themselves that they are a hero. They are writing their autobiography, and they're finding meaning in their lives by doing the good work and helping the organization. They're not, I don't know if they're really evil. They're just acting in their own self-interest, which is what most people do. But no good story, except the Avengers, has more than one hero. And the interesting thing, though, which is a very, it's instructive for this case, is that if anybody's a comic book fan like me, I mean, I've been reading them since I was a kid, and the Avengers, really, the whole thing about them isn't that they are all heroes in one story, but the challenge that they face before they gain a victory is always dysfunction, right? So if they can't get along together and if they can't work together, I mean, they made a whole movie about the dysfunction of the Avengers, where they broke the Avengers apart and Iron Man and Captain America fought each other almost to the death because they just couldn't get along. And this is kind of what happens with administrators and fundraisers in organizations where the dysfunction is allowed to fester and the administrator is allowed to try to live out their hero story by displacing and thwarting the donor's hero story. Now, you all as fundraisers, facilitators, guides, you know that it's not about you. It's about the mission, the beneficiaries, and the benefactors, the donors. So you go into your role, you take the job knowing that it's not about you, and you actually live out your hero story, knowing that that humility is your superpower. But we have a problem, don't we? So I've been talking a lot. I see some smiles and some heads nodding, so I think I better back away and let some people get off of mute. And has anybody had this experience where the administrators kind of get in the way? There's Chris, my buddy, my Atlanta connection.
So Greg, I think this is, first of all, hello, everybody. Greg, I think this is just spot on, Greg. Like many of us, I think the first time I've experienced this, well, not the first time, but this year I was able to take a donor from kind of this spontaneous giver, if you will, to, she didn't even know that she was on the track to becoming a transformational giver. But it took me 4 years to get to this point with her. And we ended up having just a real meaty conversation about her philanthropy. And I just kept kind of digging into her why. I knew she had extra money there and all this jazz, but I really was trying to figure out, why does she support us? Like why do you give to us? And long story short, we were able to get down to the meat of that. And basically, when she was 80, she's 80 something, but her dad, when she was 2 years of age, started teaching her basically about tithing. So her why began when she was 2, but she gave And she really didn't know why she was giving us for all these years. But you could see the light bulb go off when she connected the dots. And she was like, oh my goodness, right? That was like so joyful to see the joy on her face, to see the joy on her husband's face. And so, of course, I had to, I made an ask, right? And it ended up being like a 7-figure ask, and she did it. But it was not easy, but it was easy for her to say yes because she understood her why. And I think this really sums it up. And I'll stop on this. The administrators, I think a lot of them, I think you nailed it when it talks about it's more so about them, because they're not really out here on the front lines. They don't really get it. You know what I mean? And so it's just, I think we have to do our part. And I love the whole thing about the Avengers. I equate it to kind of the relational people versus kind of the transactional people almost. So that's kind of what's going on right now. But again, I'm grateful to be on this call with y'all, and thanks for allowing me to share. So
Go ahead, Tim. Good to have you here, by the way.
Good morning. When I read this, I had a bit of deja vu back to the underdeveloped study that was done a number of years ago. The Haas Fund and Compass Point did that. And then I thought, well, that didn't come out of nowhere. That's been going on for a long time. Somebody finally said, oh, we should take a look at this. And to my way of thinking, in my humble opinion, that study came out and we all said, yeah, that's a good thing. We agree with that. And nothing really happened. AFP, none of the professional organizations, to my way of thinking, and this is my opinion only, really grabbed onto it and said, let's do something. We need to figure this out. It's a big problem. And so I had kind of there were little bells going off in my head of like, yeah, this is that same problem. And we've talked about this before, and it just never seems to go anywhere. We haven't cracked the nut of how to fix that problem internally. With administration, with even program folks who, don't necessarily, you almost feel like you have to have the conversation of, you do understand that my work allows you to do your work, right? And how often do we have that conversation? And it's like, why am I having this conversation again? So I had some maybe not so positive deja vu come back at me when I read that. So yeah, that was my thought.
Well, Tim, you're in luck, although it's going to take a little while for me to get it out there, but the engagement fundraising operating system, not our software, but the book that I'm writing on the operating system, which actually Chris is one of our trainees. Yay, Chris. Is going to explain to that how do you what's the next step from that underdeveloped study, and it's from the donor's perspective. In other words, what does the donor really want? And what they want is transparency, and they want to know that you have a process. They want clarity. They want to know they're in good hands. They want to know that, as Obi-Wan was for Luke Skywalker, as Dr. James describes in his training, they want to know that they're going to go off on a journey to win a victory against great challenges, and that the guide and the sage, their advisor who's going to help them along the way, is qualified and capable of helping them navigate and win, gain that victory that they deeply desire, so they find meaning and purpose. The trick of it is to pause, and Dr. James talks a lot in the training about pauses and how powerful they are for relational decisions, not transactional decisions. You never want to pause momentum when you're doing something transactional. But in relational decisions, you always want to pause. This is why, if anyone's ever been approached by a consultant or even MarketSmart, we do an assessment or we do an opportunity analysis at Market Smart, right? There's a pause, which is important. And the pause, the cornerstone, I'm giving you a lot of foreshadowing here about the engagement fundraising system, but my invention, although someday they'll forget it came from me, just like moves management. No one knows where that came from, or some people do if you Google it. But my invention is that you pause to invite the donor properly. You pause and you invite them to go on that journey with you, with all transparency, full transparency, knowing that the end result is going to be a gift. But they can drop out anytime, and you let them know. It's up to them. They're in control. They can drop out. They can pause. Maybe their mom gets sick and they need to take a year off. I mean, this happens. This is a highly considered decision. And then people say, yeah, I'm not ready, I'm not ready, I'm not ready. Then finally they call you out of the blue, or they respond to your email and they say, I'm ready. Has anyone ever had that happen? Right? It's like you can't control when people make consequential decisions. But if you establish the relationship and you pause it and you invite them properly. So what does that mean? That means you have to clearly enunciate who you are and your credibility. I've done this for others, hundreds of others. I've been doing this for 10 years. Maybe say you have your CFRE or whatever, that might help a little bit, but more so is what you've done, not what letters you have at the end of your name. And you're talking about building trust. So you say, I've done it before, I've got the experience, but also I've got a process. These are the steps I take with people like you. Although they can be altered, again, you're in control. And the steps are usually like, first, we're going to dig deep to understand your original identity equals your motivations. In Star Wars, Luke had no motivation. Obi-Wan said, we have to go off into the stars and fight Darth Vader. And he was like, are you kidding me? I'm a farmer. I got to take care of my farm. I'm not going anywhere. And then they went into town, they come back, everybody's dead. His family's dead. Now he's got motivation. And he said, there's nothing for me here. I want to learn the ways of the Force and become a Jedi like my father before me. That's the victory. And he wanted to gain revenge. So everybody wants something, but you have to explain, like, part of the process is that I really need to understand your original identity, your motivations. As Chris did, it took him 4 years or so to find out, to get to that story. The donors don't know it in many cases. They need a guide to help them think back. People think it's so simple just to ask them, why do you give? Most people don't know. But when Dr. James says in his research, he proved it out, is that you can't go anywhere with the donor unless you understand and they understand their original identity. That is the core motivation, and big gifts, extraordinary gifts, don't happen without serious motivation. I'm going to pause for a second. Is there any questions on this before? Because I can go on rants, y'all know.
I just wanted to bring up something if no one else has anything to say right now. Okay, well, Greg, I want to read this to you because we are going towards the end of Can We Chat, that little campaign. And all of a sudden, I started getting all of these. Yes, I want to chat with you, Shalita. Yes, I want to chat with you, Shalita. It was a great campaign, and I'm almost finished with it. But here's one note that I got. Shalita, thanks for your note. In my earlier life, one of my jobs was raising money for nonprofits. So I always look at fundraising appeals with a somewhat jaundiced eye. And this was someone who said, yeah, we can contact him from the survey, but he wasn't interested in giving. And I really like the wording in your note. How can you help me make my vision for the museum a reality? He underlined all of those words. That's a very powerful appeal. And he said, well done. And then he says, I'll never be a mega $1 million donor. Wish I could be, but I will continue to give to the museum and be an enthusiastic fan of the museum. And then he says, I do want to talk with you because I am thinking about the future. So here's someone who said he didn't want to leave a planned gift. And then this, can we chat? And I'd already thumbs down and, on my little survey chart. But here he is saying he wants to chat. And I called Jennifer Willett and I said, Jennifer, why are we sending emails to someone who said they're not going to give? And she says, well, if they say they want a response, an email from you every now and then, we kind of take them up on that. And we did. And I can't tell you how many chats I've had to manage and put in the schedule because I just wasn't expecting so many people to want to chat. And I think the word chat is very nice as well. So yesterday I had another chat with a gentleman in Baton Rouge, and he's now thinking of leaving a planned gift. And I may not realize it, he's 80-some years old for a few years, but he's interested, and I'll be getting a donor notification form, which I got one in the mail today. And I'm so excited about getting these forms. So it works, Greg. Everything you're doing and the way you do it, it works. And it goes against what I thought. If they say I'm not doing it, I thought, okay, well, you don't want to do that. But they do. Thank you.
Well, we love Shalita. You all know that. Yes, super fan. And just so for the people who don't know, Jen Willett is Shalita's customer success manager here at MarketSmart. Shalita's organization is the World War II Museum.
The National World War II Museum in New Orleans, Louisiana.
Yeah, and in fact, y'all started off a little rocky with us. Not sure they didn't believe. And in fact, I think leadership changed, and then they came, they stuck with it. And so you're talking about how the system works. This is especially for people who are not customers, with the survey and then the automated emails. And then you're getting essentially donors coming to you. The thing I wanted to point out, though, is that the reason I built this way with technology is because through technology, you can provide a VIP experience to every supporter. They may have donated, and that's okay. Low dollar donors, mid-level donors, major donors, it's all the same. Treat them all the same with technology. They deserve it. And then, of course, though, some are going to be more qualified for the expense of a VIP experience than others. Generally, the low dollar donors will gain that from you when they're interested in a planned gift, not a $20 credit card donation. And people understand that. But it works at all levels. It's the fair and it's the right thing to do. Any other thoughts before I move on to connecting the identity to the victory? And no, are you all ready? Okay, I see some heads moving. So I'll move on to that. Okay, so clearly it resonated. I kind of pontificated about why we think the rest of the organization and society don't view you this way. I believe also, I'll add, that it's because of the over-solicitous nature of the marketers driven by the administrators and their desire for immediate gratification instead of understanding that the tortoise beats the hare every time. I have a blog article coming out soon that basically says you don't even need acquisition. And this, I've always thought this, but it's really come to light because of our, I don't think they're a customer yet, but we've been talking a lot, the Rails to Trails Conservancy, which is one I give to and engage with. But it's because they actually don't have a very big solicitation budget for acquisition of low dollar gifts. Instead, what they did was they created an app that helped people find the best trails and understand how busy they are, or if they need to be cleaned up or what. So they have hundreds of thousands of people using the app. And then they well screen that and such, which of course we're going to convince them that they could just survey them. But I guess what I'm saying is, if you get creative, you might not need to over solicit people at low dollar levels, where the retention is bad anyway, and they just drop out, as the newest Giving USA data shows. So why not start by not asking, but rather offering and delivering value? So anyway, okay, so let's get to what can we do about this, because we got to get moving. First, I want to mention, and this is out of the fast track from Dr. James. If any of you feel, and I can understand, some people do have 21 hours, I think it is, to get through the Dr. James course. But we do have, I think it's 2.5 hours that it takes to get through my fast track. So if you're in the course and you're feeling overwhelmed, take the fast track. This is kind of straight out of it, is that it's awkward to talk to potential benefactors at first, especially if they don't know you and they're not responding to a survey or anything. It's awkward partly because of who's whispering in our ear, meaning the administrators who want us to solicit too fast. But it's also awkward if we allow that voice to talk to us when we need to assure ourselves and take the position of the advisor and guide and dream maker, as Shalita said. And we need to read what I wrote to ourselves and make sure that we know who we are and what we're doing, because then it becomes less awkward, especially if we pause and offer the invitation to work with you as a guide and go off on a journey to win a victory, just like Obi-Wan did with Luke. Okay, you've got to pause and offer the invitation. That'll be the cornerstone of the operating system when I come out with it. So by positioning yourself, and what's funny is consultants, fundraising consultants do this, lawyers do this, accountants, CPAs, are very good at it. And plus society has already told all of us that they deserve that kind of respect, that they are accredited or experienced and they've gone through so much schooling. So they're allowed, for that reason, to position themselves as someone's guide. Fundraisers donors, benefactors haven't heard that much. And too many of their experiences have been solicitous or awkward, because they can even just sense that the person sitting next to them at the event is a plant and a fundraiser who's just looking for an opening so that they can, get in there and then ask you for money. They've been through it, unfortunately. But if you take that position and you make it clear and transparent to others that this is who I am, I'm different than the others, and this is how we work, and this is my process, this is what you can expect going forward, this is the control you have. It's your money, it's your decision. I'm just here to help you. It's all up to you, right? You've got to take that position, or you won't get that far. Now, the first step to taking that position is asking permission. Miss So-and-so, can I ask you, I've got something I want to ask you about and tell you about me and how I help people like you. can I have a few minutes just to explain how that works? Right? It's always best to start some of these challenging conversations by asking for permission. And this is straight out of Dr. James's books, but it's also out of all the best sales books in the world, even though sales and fundraising are a little different. But anytime you want to have a challenging conversation, even if it's with your significant other or a daughter or your mother, you've got to pause and ask for permission. Make sure you get their agreement that you're gonna talk about something kind of serious. That gets their head in the game. Then Dr. James says, always begin, or after you gain permission, always reconnect their original identity. Because when you help them reconnect their original identity, you're lighting a fire of motivation. Now, if you don't reconnect the original identity, you're just having the conversation, but something's missing. You haven't reignited the motivation. And it's very important. It'll make people more accepting of your invitation offer if you ask permission and then reconnect their original identity for them so they remember, why are you all even talking? That gives you the green light to move forward. And then you need to practice before you meet with them. Frankly, I probably should have put this in a different order maybe, but you need to practice how you're gonna invite them. I won't go through all the things that I've been saying, like you might even want a one-sheeter or a brochure, or best if it doesn't look like you spent money on it, but a one-sheeter of who you are, your credentials, who you've helped, some testimonials from people who gained value in their lives because of you. Put those testimonials, a little picture of each person, maybe even how much they gave or how long it took for them to make that decision, and the story that, yeah, they dropped out for 2 years, but then they came back and it was even better because they got an inheritance and we didn't know that was coming. And then they gave half of it to, the mission, and all these things could be on a one-sheeter. But what you want to practice is the ask. It's not an ask for money. It's an ask to be their guide. So when I say practice, and it's funny, I have my 2 dogs sitting right here, if any of them can see, but I always say practice in front of your dog or cat. Your family members won't get it. So I talk to these animals all the time. I always say we got 2 dogs, 2 cats, and 2 horses in the Warner household. The horses are not in the household, but so I talk to a lot of animals. All right, so here's what you want to do. You want to, and again, this comes straight out of Dr. James's, but he didn't invent this invitation. So I tweaked what he's got in his books and his training, and I tweaked it not for the solicitation of money, but for the solicitation invitation where you're offering to become a guide. Now, I want to pause here and say the amazing thing about the invitation is if you do it well and right, you never have to actually solicit anybody for money, because then the gift just unfolds and the donor closes the gift on their own. When they're done and they understand everything, they say, is there anything else we need? And you basically say, well, you just need to transfer the funds. But there's no hard solicitation. So let's go to the solicitation of the invitation, which precedes any solicitation if you even were to do one. And it begins with connecting the identity, or the identity to challenge connection sentence, as Dr. James calls it. So that's where you remind them of their connection and their original identity. So you have, and you describe their connection to your cause. The second step is the victory to identity connection sentence, where you remind them about sort of like what would happen if this cause, this mission, this organization was not here anymore. You understand how important this is, not just for you, but or for other beneficiaries, but for you, the benefactor. So, and don't worry, I'm going to give you examples of this, someone actually saying it in a second. So then you have the challenge to victory connection sentence. That's where you're going to connect the challenge to the victory. I'd like you to consider allowing me to be your VIP conduit, your guide, your advisor. So, and then you get that the victory that they explained that they wanted or hinted at. And then finish it off. What do you say? Would you like to work with me on this? And then you got to be quiet. Even if it just take a sip of water. Look at them. Do not speak. Most of the time, if they're not talking, it's just because they're thinking, and we owe them that. This is a consequential decision. Are they gonna go on a journey with you as their guide? And if not, why? What's in the way? Is it you don't trust me? Do you think I'm not experienced enough? Do you think we should bring in others? Would you like me to bring in an expert or a board member, someone, a program person? What's missing? Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
That offer to be their VIP has led me into many different situations here at the museum. I mean, they remember that I'm your VIP at the National World War II Museum. And I get requests for all kinds of things from these donors that I'm cultivating for, well, I thought I was cultivating, but they are really using me for whatever they need at the museum, even though it's all on the website where they can go. But I just wanted to mention that use of the word in the first phase of our stewardship and everything that we do with Market Smart, how that VIP term has come into play over these years.
Thank you, Shalita. And I'm gonna twist it just a little bit in saying that you were saying they use me as their VIP conduit. I'm going to tell you it a little different from my perspective as someone and I don't give millions, I don't have it, but when I give, it's generally $5,000 or $10,000, $20,000, right? So I'm going to say this, and I hope this doesn't hurt, but they're testing you.
Yeah. And whatever they want, I follow it to the end. Whatever they want, our donors.
Right. Because they're testing you to see not only if the organization's worthy, but you're a reflection of the organization. So if you don't return their call, if you don't keep them updated about that, then what are you going to do when stewarding their gift?
Whatever,
but if you're there for them for the little things.
That's right.
Like helping my old aunt get in through a certain door with her wheelchair.
Yes, I'm there to meet her.
If you are there, yes. So you're building trust, and nothing happens without trust. Anyone else before I continue and kind of move to wrap up? Okay, so here I'm going to do it pretending this is for someone who's a benefactor or potential benefactor for a hospital. It's like, and I'm going to even embellish it because I don't like the way, but you've been a friend of the hospital for over 20 years, since the time when your mom was here. And I remember Nurse Riley, you told me about the story of how Nurse Riley sat with her and made sure she wasn't in pain and so on and so forth. And so you understand how more support and training for the nursing staff could make so many in the community feel more comfortable, just like we did for your mom. So I'd like you to consider allowing me to be your VIP conduit, your guide, your advisor. So together we can work on a gift that's meaningful to you. What do you say? Would you like to work with me on that? Any thoughts?
I guess the only thing that I might say is when you're phrasing in the second sentence, are you leaving out other potential opportunities for the person? I mean, that's the only, like, if you know that that's what matters to them, right? You know that that's the impact. Maybe it's a broad enough statement, but that would be my one thought, Greg.
You're right. And I'll explain how that's taken care of in the system, although I haven't finished the book yet, but you're all
Yeah,
helping.
I'm sure you do. I just, that was what came to mind. But the natural flow with mentioning the nurse who took such good care of the donor's mother, it would be a natural flow for that particular area to be.
So the part of the engagement fundraising operating system that I didn't include in this discussion, but we have actually in previous Mastermind mixers. And if any of you want it, just let me know and we'll send you the old video. We talk about menus, and I believe that in the invitation and when you're showing your credentials and your testimonials and all that, you probably want to include a mini menu of opportunities. So the launch, the invitation, and by the way, this is for you to customize. I'm just trying to show you the structure of it and why it's important to connect original identity. So if you feel that it's too early and you don't want to leave anything off the table, you might not say it this way. But it could be that earlier in the relationship, they looked at a menu and they said, you know what, I would be interested in learning more about these opportunities related to the nursing staff, right? So what I'm saying is menus are a part of the process and the operating system, but they're an interesting bug, or maybe it's a feature in the process, because you can bring a menu forward to a supporter at any time. We just did endowment scholarship campaign for the University of Texas. I don't know if anyone's here, but you know, the number of reasons why people want to fund and endow a scholarship is just nuts, right? So, and some it's because they were a scholarship recipient. Others because they knew a scholarship. I mean, there's so many different reasons. Or others, it's just because they want more diversity at the school. So they want to fund that kind of scholarship. There's so many different kinds of scholarships. But first you have to figure out that they're even interested in scholarship endowment, you know? So zeroing in on these opportunities, and a big part of the operating system is to make sure that, and for University of Texas, we actually put those offers, the menu on their webpage. And if you're a newer customer, you're noticing, and if you're an older customer, we're kind of forcing you all to think about your menus. What can you offer? It sounds fairly commercial because then you're talking about productizing and them buying something, but don't think of it that way. It's really just removing friction from the thought process for giving. It's not about commercialization. It's about helping them with their decision-making process. So, Stephen, thank you for bringing that up because you zeroed in on it. You're astute and a professional, and I know already, we know you're a pro. You've been doing this a long time. So you picked up on it. You were like, huh, there's something missing here. And I'm like, yep, I knew you would pick it up on, you know. So it's that there's a menu, and that if that's done well, and if you have a survey filled out, like if you're using our system and they've already told you the areas that they care about, then your invitation can resonate more properly and be more likely to get a yes.
So,
Laura?
So I think I totally agree, and in that same kind of thought vein, and Shalita, alluded to it earlier, is that what I do is I'm in planned giving, so I don't necessarily have projects, right? I'm a little bit more global, because especially if they set up some kind of endowed fund, this is going to go until, we're a Christian organization. So I say, well, this endowment's going to pay off until the second coming, right? So, this is going to be the next 200 years. The Salvation Army's been around for 170 years. We're going to be doing this hopefully until it's not, everything's better again, God takes care of everything. But in the meantime, for the next 200 years, probably, this is what's going to happen. So, and we're going to be doing the same boring things, which is feeding people and getting, homeless people off the streets and doing addiction recovery. We're going to be doing those same things that we've been doing since the beginning. And so the menu options, I tend to let the donor tell me their story, like how they've connected with the Salvation Army in the past and what that means to them. And then they create the menu. And then I kind of feed that back into on the quantitative side. I love the qualitative feel of all of this, which is missing. And I'm actually getting referrals from attorneys in very high, high end 7-8 figure gifts are coming to the Salvation Army, and planned gifts from attorney referrals, because especially their fee sensitive clients don't want to have a qualitative conversation with their attorney at $700 an hour. That attorney understands that I can be a sage. And
so they have trust in you. So they're that's fascinating.
They're saying, why don't you talk with Laura? And now I have to build, I have to kind of get on the inside and get to build relationships with those referral sources. But again, I just love that there's a lot of smart out there, a lot of the quantitative, especially in planned giving. Okay, charitable gift annuity, charitable remainder trust, charitable lead trust, blah, 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 blah. Hey, you want to buy a CGA? And so there's lots of smart people out there, these high net worth people, families are not communicating to the next generation. This wealth transfer is 3 times as large as any number I've really seen, but we're not preparing the next generation. So I work with people who specialize in intergenerational communication, helping see estate planning from the recipient's perspective, and how the Salvation Army can continue to be part of that family identity and family story. That was a lot, but I like the idea that Shalita had earlier about the donor is driving the menu. And that's kind of how I look at things.
I do want to remind everybody, especially I keep remembering, not everybody's gone through the research in the course. So one thing about these menus that's counterintuitive is that you almost feel like, well, if I provide a menu, then I'm pigeonholing people and they're going to, right? But Dr. James' research showed that when people come to the ultimate decision, the data shows that they end up kind of throwing all that away and saying, you know what, just use it where you need it most.
Yeah.
That's what the research shows.
They do, yeah.
So remember, we're just trying to remove friction from the thought process in the consideration continuum. This helps people come to the decision to give, albeit not necessarily for that specific thing. But if they want something specific, then it helps make their giving that much more meaningful, so they feel like a better hero in their own life story and publicly to others. So we only have a few minutes left. I want to open the floor for any other thoughts, comments, additions, stories.
Hi.
Hi, Karina.
Hi, Karina from Princess Margaret. I want to just share some comments about this scenario, the example that you gave about your friend at the foundation, there was a nurse involved. I thought that because that was the interest that they have shared, that was always a good starting point. And I think we always struggle with whether we're leaving other potential opportunities at the table. But I find I've seen some experience where donors may use it as a test gift, the starting point, and then the relationship manager could use that to further build that relationship. But as you continue to share the impact, and you can link it to other priorities at the organization. And I've seen donors who are in existing pledges, they came forward with a second commitment, which is a much larger gift. So I find that's very encouraging when I have those doubting moments. And I also use a menu list of items, and I've also find it just to give them a starting point, because sometimes they don't know what to look forward to. And so you're just giving them something for them to react to. And then you can have like a further, more engaging conversation down the road. Mhm.
Yeah, this is exactly it. Great, Karina. Thank you. And I bet since you've been a long-time customer, most of the disclosure forms you get from our system probably say use it where it's needed most. That's what we see for, especially with planned gifts is what I'm talking about. But using it as a starting point is a really good, see, this is the whole idea, is it's about working on a gift together. So it's up to them. Ultimately, it's up to them. You're just trying to, it's kind of like going to a restaurant where you're like, I want the eggs and I want the ham, but I also want the bacon. I'm Jewish. I want neither. I mean, anyway. So with that bad joke, I'll leave final. Anybody have any final words, thoughts of wisdom, critiques of any of this I'm saying? No. All right, we see a thumbs up. I'll give you a minute back in your day. It's always a pleasure. This is like one of my favorite things to do all the time. So I love seeing you, and I love this interaction. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next month. And don't forget to take the survey. And if you find a friend that will think better of you for having referred us to them, please do that. We need the dues. Just kidding. Bye.